got this on a tripod. Oh, there we go. Something like that. Hello and welcome. So new webcam. So we're trying 1080p. I hope the speed is okay. We're gonna have to see how this looks finally. But I was forgetting that the other webcam I was using was just outputting 720. So that's what I was using for all of the streams. What I think I can do. The internet connection I think will let us do more than that. So that's what we're going to try to do. And yeah, so this should work. All right. But yeah, let's get started. I'm sorry, everything is off a little bit, but I think we're okay. Yeah, get this out of the way. All right, so I think everything seems to be working. So welcome, and we'll see how this goes. I don't know exactly what we're going to run into as far as lag or bandwidth or whatever, but let's give this a shot and see how it goes. All right. So yeah, let's just get started with some warm up. I think the microphone is good. Maybe a little warm. Let's go down a little bit, and okay. So I'm trying not to give you all that road noise, but yeah, I think this will work. And maybe still a little bit this way. All right. Well, apologies. Things are still, not quite in their permanent places, but yeah, we'll work with this. And this is, I'm just curious to see how much better, if better at all, this looks in the stream, and if it works better. And you can always, scale it down if it's not streaming smoothly, especially in the archive. So this is Twitch again, and it'll be archived on the YouTube channel. So let's get started. All right. So, yeah, I was reading something this morning that was pretty depressing, pretty disturbing, talking about the new kind of planned cities or planned communities, and they were talking about how a lot of the big tech companies are working on this new idea of employee housing, or their own idea of city planning, and just kind of density, just having people packed into more kind of affordable housing, kind of projects for tech workers. And it was a really sad, I mean, they sounds like they're seriously pursuing this, and of course along with keeping you close at work, and also being able to kind of keep a good eye on you, because you're going to be giving everything up to their kind of data mining. So your movement and your water usage and all your activities will be monitored to make things more efficient. And this is kind of a model for the new cities. So they were comparing that to the post-war idea of suburbs, and how people were allowed freedom. They were they didn't have big yards and big houses, but they had enough, and they were given freedom with that. And now this new idea is to just give everything up for convenience, and to make you a good employee, because obviously these companies don't have much interest in you getting married and having kids. I mean, that makes you a much less convenient employee if you have other obligations. But if you're totally devoted to your project or your tasks, whatever you're working on, working on for them, then that's perfect. That's exactly what you need to be doing. So that's kind of the new idea for urban planning, and we may see that, in the not too distant future. These, Google or any of these other companies that really want to get a handle on their employees and make sure they're getting the most out of them. And also they were talking about I guess there already exists certain amounts of dormitories for the H-1B, what is it? The visa, the kind of temporary work visa for tech workers. So that kind of the indentured servitude of the tech industry, using that system for their advantage, because they don't have to, the same labor laws don't apply, and they don't have to pay you the same, and they'll have much more loyal workers when they're afraid that at any moment they can be kicked out of the country. So yeah, just really depressing. And I'm curious how far it's going to go, and how much people will tolerate, because they were talking about, I think it was in Europe, that already there's a lot of resistance to this, and they're trying to put controls on how much privacy you're giving up, how much you're monitored, or how much data can be taken from you. But if it's part of the package, if it's kind of part of your lease agreement or whatever, that everything you do is going to be monitored, then there's nothing anybody can do kind of civil rights or human rights wise to protect you from your own, from wanting your own wanting that convenient life, or wanting to, work for that company. But yeah, it's a really, really weird kind of dystopian, but, close by, in the near future, that sort of thing could actually be what we're dealing with. And yeah, really depressing. So I was just thinking about that constant monitoring, and yeah, what that life would be like. And it's just ridiculous. I mean, I think that's very antisocial, and very computer based. I think anybody that's worked in an office with computers, or has used digital time cards, or even key passes, an ID key card pass that you can use to open doors and things, that really puts you on a clock, and people know exactly where you are and what you're doing at any time, just by when you've gone in, how many times you've gotten up to use the restroom, how many cigarette breaks you've taken. They know that exactly, and to the exact minute, and then they can just compare you to other workers and decide how efficient or inefficient you are based on how much time you're not at your desk. Just kind of these things that don't really measure productivity. And it's really it's really frustrating that we may be in that very irrational world soon, where everything is decided by software, and just judging people by these number of minutes spent in Microsoft Word, number of minutes spent editing spreadsheet. It's going to be an odd future to deal with, because already those kind of workplaces felt hostile. I mean, zero flexibility, and nobody was going to kind of think in a more humane way about how, just about what that does to kind of employee morale and things, to just the overall sense of everybody being monitored is very depressing. So just that constant surveillance. And I think, once that becomes norm, people will get used to it, but they'll never be able to go back. They'll never recover from those companies any sense of personal privacy or anything. And then once you extend that to people living in company housing, which actually is, I'm not sure if it's still as common as it was, but definitely bubble time in Japan, company housing was a very pretty standard thing. The neighborhood we live in now, there's a whole row of houses in our area that were all, I'm not sure what kind of factory it was, but they were these really tiny. They're barely like 2 meters wide, so like barely, like just a little over 6 feet wide, really long little 2-story houses that were, I guess, employee houses, are kind of, kind of more dormitory, because they are so tiny you couldn't have a family. Realistically, you couldn't have a family in there. I mean, 2 people can kind of barely fit in that kind of situation. But there was a series of those tiny little houses. And yeah, that was all based on kind of legacy of a factory or a company that was big in that area that's not there any longer. But we're going to see maybe a new style of that with this, kind of monitored high-tech housing, and it'll give you some advantages. I mean, the system will know when you need milk or when you're out of toilet paper or whatever. I mean, if you're completely monitored, those sorts of things, those sorts of things will become very convenient. But at the same time, I don't think anyone is going to build a system that is, truly sympathetic to kind of human condition and how we judge each other, just the little bit of privacy that people lose, especially people in the public eye, or politicians, or celebrities, anybody that kind of has a public life. The judgment that is placed on them is really crazy. And so the idea that that's not going to, that same kind of bizarre judgment about their lifestyle or what they do or how they spend their time, once they're under surveillance, and if it's related to the company that you're working for, that whole situation just sounds completely insane. That your boss is going to call you into his office and say, yeah, we see you're only spending about 4 hours sleeping a night, and that's just not satisfactory, and so you're not getting this bonus this year because you're not fulfilling the requirements for the the ideal employee that we had in mind. So yeah, it's a very odd idea or odd feeling about what people can do with that, because I think there's this default, and I've kind of complained about this before, but there's this default thinking that technology is good, is always serving some good purpose, and it's not. It can never, from the start, be evil or used for completely ill purposes or be destructive. That this progress is always good. This kind of forward thinking or future thinking kind of attitude that we have. So technology is just by default a benefit, a wonderful thing. And I think we're eventually going to have to get to the point where we're more critical, we're more skeptical of, okay, yeah, you can do this, but what are you going to do with this? Why do you want to do this? And I just don't think we're at that point. I mean, people literally have speakers and microphones in their house, and they're asking questions to Google and now Siri with these little speakers in their house, but these speakers have microphones. And so people have chosen to put an internet-enabled recording device in their house just so they can say, hey, what's the weather like today? Or, how many feet in 12 miles or whatever, just ridiculous functionality that isn't really that useful. And people don't even know what they were giving up. I mean, they already had that a few years ago. I think it was a Samsung television that was released in North America that said in the manual, hey, the microphone's constantly on. We're listening to everything you say. So just so you know, that's part of owning this television, and you can't turn it off. That was a little bit strange that a company thought that, they could completely get away with that was okay to just, as long as we told them, then, they can't blame us if they've got any problems. If anything comes up with that, and things, all that kind of stuff started very, I think, innocuously with convenience, things like fast passes, the easy passes, the kind of electronic sensors that you could use for tolls, for freeway tolls, to make it easier, so you didn't have to wait in a line and physically hand money to a toll taker. You had things electronically, but that means not as in as sophisticated a way as GPS, but they knew where you are or what point you passed this certain spot, and so that could be used in criminal investigations and divorce cases and just about anything. and people just gave that up for the convenience. And now it's gone way beyond that, so that, if you've got location turned on a phone, like they know where you are within 5 feet all the time. And they haven't quite talked about that yet, about how legally they're going to be able to use that. But I remember already cell phones, when they're in criminal cases, they're talking about, well, they were near this cell tower at this time, or this, they placed a call that connected to this cell tower, so that roughly puts them in this area. So they had that kind of, location, very general location tracking, but now they have very specific tracking. And it's not like you can't turn that off, but who actually knows, what kind of control you have over that functionality. But yeah. Oh yeah, so I got to be careful. So I got a mic right under my face, so I don't mean to be drinking right into that. I'm sure that sounds delightful. So just trying to do some smartphones here, just as a warm-up, some different shapes and sizes. But yeah, it's a very scary thing. And actually, I was recently have been writing some stories, some short fiction with that kind of world in mind, a world where, by default people are just chipped and monitored and, just having their kind of everyday experiences. So in that kind of world, the idea of the stories, just basically comes down to people trying to maintain their humanity, or being very frustrated with the kind of state of things, and just having the kind of small disruptions in your life when things don't go perfect in a very monitored, controlled way. Because that's the problem with it, is that's the default, is things going perfectly okay. That needs to be standard operating procedure. And really these sophisticated systems, when things go wrong, are not able to handle them. I mean, anybody that's had an older Apple product or anything, you go beyond its well functioning, the battery's still easily nice and full, you have a nice battery life, you have a nice quick processor, and then you find out your battery starts dying, the system starts slowing down your processor, things just stop working, and then applications just quit on you instantly. You run out of memory, you're running out of space, physical space on the devices themselves. So once you get into that world of things not quite going how they should, I mean, ideally you would just want to replace them. You just want to go back to that state. So you'd want to buy a new model or whatever, but to correct the problem, or have it, repaired, have the battery replaced, or, have the whatever software was ruining your, overall functionality, have that removed. But what if that was your life? You just kind of get one situation that you live in, and when things go wrong, it's a very difficult thing to correct. And so a lot of these story ideas just come from that. How does divorce work in this world? How does having children or having unwanted children work in this kind of situation? So yeah, I've just been working on some stories, and I'm not sure ultimately what I'll do with them, but the idea just really fascinated me about what that's like. And once we start to really put everybody in this automated, very monitored world, what's that going to do to people's the kind of their psychology, and their how are people going to handle this, and what kind of strange behaviors and things are people going to have to start resorting to just kind of maintain humanity, to not feel lost in that system. And I think that's a thing that, the Black Mirror series touches on, where they're talking about just kind of a specific technology and how that's affecting people's lives, or how people are interacting with that. But I think it'll be more, it'll be crazier when it's not just a technology, but, you know, this whole, you know, kind of system that people are part of, and how they're going to deal with that, like how that's going to actually affect people and their motivations, and, you know, what they want from life when they feel very limited, you know, when they're just kind of plugged into a situation. And, you know, just think if you know, there were no dating apps anymore that people had any free use of. Basically, you're just registered into a system-wide dating app, and so when you went to you know, when you wanted to find a date, you know, basically you just plugged into this only one service that just was provided by this system that you're all in. Of course, it's got a lot of information, and probably the matches are pretty amazing, but that's it. You've got one choice, and so instead of, you know, being able to choose your match, you know, based on looks or hobbies or location or whatever, you know, that will be done for you, for the, you know, ultimate good of the system, or from the however the people that designed it, whatever would benefit them most. So that's a very scary, very scary idea. So that's some of the ideas I was playing around with in those stories, and reading that article then about this kind of planned community, and how, you know, there's companies that are just dying, just begging, let us, you know, design a city, give us control over complete, you know, urban development and the infrastructure of an actual city, and let us put our employees in it. And yeah, it's very, very sinister, but not unimaginable. I mean, you know, there's already been planned cities, planned communities, and so we could just see the, you know, the latest generation of that. But it's just, yeah, it's really scary to think of how that's going to be abused, and what kind of life that would actually even be for people. So yeah, that was kind of on my mind after reading that article, and because I was already thinking about that with my the short stories, it became very, that became very compelling, because it is so close. So I don't even think I could call the stories that I'm, you know, this world that I'm writing about science fiction. It's more just like speculative, you know, very near future, you know, kind of fiction. It's just, you know, 1 degree, or just a few degrees higher, a few degrees more intense than what people are already dealing with. And maybe that's what was so attractive to me, and that's the thing that I liked about, or I like about the Black Mirror series, especially that first season, is some of the technology that they introduced is, you know, we're very close to that, and it seems very functional, and it seems, you know, pretty practical, like people would you know, find that pretty useful already at this point. And so that's amazing to think how close we already are to some of these really difficult decisions. And the sad thing is the technology moves so fast, and, you know, kind of society and and legal systems and things move so slow, that there's this, you know, horrible adjustment period where things are just kind of all up in the air, and people are doing ridiculous things with technology, and we don't even know when we're in those periods. I think we're probably going to look back at this like social Twitter age that we're in and wonder what people were even thinking, how they thought that was even a viable way, you know, just writing on this worldwide bulletin board that anybody can just, you know, attack you and judge you on. It seems a pretty ridiculous idea for socializing on the internet. It just leaves open so much, you know, ridiculousness. And somebody at some time thought that was a really good way to go. I don't even know if they've figured out how to make money with it yet, but they definitely created a perfect platform for people to shame and accuse each other. But yeah, so that was so that's very interesting. That whole, not really science fiction, like barely fiction, like near future, like micro futurist. I don't know what a good term for that would be. But not too far in the future, not too ahead of things, but things were almost on the verge of dealing with. They were almost confronting socially, or I guess personally. That's the thing. It's on a personal level, and societies judge it, with different timing and in different ways. I mean, people. It takes a while for certain things to really get decent consideration. So yeah, so that's fun. So if I get any of that in a finished state, maybe I'll put some links to some of those stories or ideas on here so we can keep looking at stuff. So it's different from if you've seen any of the Citizen Spaceman stories, that's more fairy tale, kind of fantasy idea, and these other short story ideas are more kind of speculative fiction and short fiction format. So I'm not sure if that's ever going to become anything visual, because there's so much kind of internally going on with the characters. I don't think it's going to have to be written, or maybe like like an audiobook or a podcast or something where it's like dramatically read. I think would be the only way that it would work for kind of consuming that. So we'll see what happens with that. But I've got about 5 of those little story ideas worked out, so I think it might be a nice set of something. So that will be around sometime. Okay, well, we've got phones. We've got a lot of phones. And so let's see here. So I've been working in this full screen, but I think I'm gonna have to do this to get my tabs back here. Yeah, so let's save this and maybe put this older analog phone receiver over here. And yeah, something like this. Yeah, maybe one of those would be fun. Yeah, so I was thinking about, this needs to be distorted a little bit. So I was thinking about a couple of things with the cartoons today. So digital and analog here, and then for here also just thinking about the paranoia, if this device was a little person or a little character, the paranoia that it might feel from somebody knowing where it was at any time, that Find My iPhone app or whatever, like to be able to be located or watched at all time, and in fact have all of your email read and be monitored. That's a very Google, Apple thing right now. So to kind of put that into a mobile device's personality might be funny. So that was my idea for this, but I think I'm going to also do something with this guy here. Maybe I'll put him here. And let's see. So let me fill this analog receiver with some white so I can kind of layer things better. So that's behind here. Yeah, that's gonna need to be covered up too. Sorry. What layer am I on? Help. All right, and there's the phone. Bring this guy up a little bit, and I think this layer, maybe this layer will need to be, yeah. need to be my the other thing to complete, which I should probably draw without that there, so I can get a more natural shape. Oh, and make sure I'm still right color. Actually, I should zoom in a little bit. Yeah, I don't have my keyboard in a very ideal situation. So Skype, not Skype, Twitch on the window that I'm looking at is looking like it's not doing very well with the streaming. So locally it's looking okay, and I guess my phone, that seems to be looking okay. Looks nice, but yeah, I don't understand what that is. Like Twitch is constantly like buffering and things on the site, so you don't get a very good idea of how well you're connecting and how well you're streaming from the actual twitch.tv. That's a little frustrating. All right, so here we go. We're doing this. Let's see if I get a good funny shape. A funny banana shape. Yeah, they have a they have at the grocery stores in Japan I don't know if it was the intention. I think the intention is, for it to be kind of a kid's snack food, but they're almost plantain size, these little tiny bananas, and I think they're like, kids snack small sized bananas, and they're pretty sweet, so kind of like a baby carrot, so these little tiny sweet bananas, and they call them monkey banana. So monkey bananas. And so that makes me laugh, because I don't think they would dare name anything monkey banana in an American grocery store, but I think that's so funny, the way they just use English, like a katakana English for that, and how funny and cute is that. Does it even look like? I don't even know. Let's see what this looks like with the phones involved here. Yeah, but I was just thinking about an analog phone and a banana contrasting each other. Oh yeah, I got the corner of my tablet down, so it's kind of hard to deal with all this. A little bit bigger on the banana and a little bit lower on the phone. So it has to be maybe like there, and then the phone. All right. I guess something like that. It's a funny looking banana. Yeah, something like that might work. So just thinking about the two of the three of them felt very silly. All right. Okay, so there's phones and a banana, and yeah, I might want to play around with this. I'm not sure. So I want to make sure the banana is as banana looking as possible as far as scale and everything, and that the phone, yeah, I guess, yeah. Actually, oops, maybe that should be a little bigger in comparison. All right, yeah, big old phone. Try to come up with some interesting colors for that, and then the other one I was thinking, so I don't want to use that anymore. Yeah, let me see if oh, that's nice. I can bump my tablet and it doesn't shake. It's shaking for me, but it's not shaking for you, so that's nice. All right. So, yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe not this one. I think this size. Will probably be best. It's looking like a Palm Pilot more than a smartphone, but I think I'm making it just too wide is all. Something like that. Okay. Let's see how we're doing. As far as, yeah, that's kind of lame. I don't like this angle too much. I think we're gonna have to fix that with distortion. It's just not. This down a little bit. No, I gotta want to stretch it out. I keep doing that. Oh. All right. So something like that. So yeah, not a very creative topic for today, but it was just in the kind of in my head, and especially because I was working on the little short stories with that same kind of theme, that surveillance and the modern lifestyle of just living completely privacy free. And I had to talk with a friend about that, and was saying that there is some kind of security, some kind of safety in that, to know everybody's watched. So everything you do, scratching your ass or picking your nose, everybody does it. Everybody knows when you're going to do it. So it might change the perception of shame and modesty and things, because if everything is completely revealed and everyone is everyone walks around naked, then no one is going to have any be able to judge somebody for being exposed, because everybody will be. So it's an odd thing. It's a strange thing that we're going to have to figure our way through pretty quickly, and I hope people make good choices about this. It seems like certain smaller groups and countries and things have been making good decisions against companies that are coming up with like blind box gambling mechanisms in video games and things. They're trying to slow the pace of this. A lot of this technology and a lot of things are evolved just completely based on greed. It's a completely like, this is a more efficient system, or it's a better sleight of hand to wring money out of people. So let's do it this way. And I like seeing certain amounts of resistance, and there probably are going to be just a few specific. And the funny thing is, we may actually find some moral leadership in very odd places, like in developing countries or in China or someplace. We may see, because they see the bare capitalism or the ugly greed in some of these systems, they're going to be against them, or they're going to judge them as not compatible with their culture, their style of government or whatever. So we may actually get some sort of moral guidance from very surprising places, when North America may be much more aggressive, and the companies may be working in a little bit more sinister ways, for making ugly profits, or just kind of sneaking money out of customers in these certain systems. So that may be a very, very interesting dynamic in the future, is how we're given, kind of guidance from other people's, very different approach. And it may not be, that I think all of these, any country, any government has, its ugly motivations, but in some cases that may be a nice counter to, American capitalism or whatever. It just may be a nice way to keep things in balance, where you don't have this unbridled greed running the show. All right, so I guess we'll put some color on these and see if this is going to work. This still might need something that I'm not doing yet, so we'll see. Oh yeah, maybe I should just do a kind of black mirror thing here. Just put a black window on him, but maybe some other colors. And this, maybe I'll try to remember that That's a little bright, but the that kind of Nokia or Ericsson color combination, that silver, silver and strange blue that they used to have back in the day. And I think I'll give it the green, so we're not looking at even a color screen. I'll give it that green LCD deal there. So try to come up with a bright silver look for all the keypad and everything. Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure about how either of these look right now. All right, let's see if I can. Yeah, I still haven't found a real good position for everything, but hopefully the microphone's sounding better, the camera's looking better, although I'm not sure if it's actually streaming in a decent way. Yeah, I don't know. We'll have to see what this looks like and compare it to, and I got to be careful turning away from the microphone, comparing it to previous streams and see if this actually works or if it's just not practical. Because yeah, with the webcam upgrade, I thought this might be a something worth trying, because we can do 1080p video, so it may be worth trying to do the stream in that. And it seems like I've got the bandwidth for it, but we're not going to really know until I'm able to look back at this later. And so apologies in advance if this was a completely, if this is a complete waste of time. I was trying to keep slowly bumping up the quality of all this stuff and get a good, get a good product going that I can just produce on a regular basis. So I'm hoping that that's happening. Oh, and that's here. Yeah, I think that was, maybe that was a Sony Ericsson, but yeah, I had a phone that had a funny, and teal is such a 90s, like early 2000s, I guess 90s color. It was like an odd teal and silver, something like that. But yeah, giving a little retro vibe here. And as far as this, I guess maybe do a two-tone silver. I'm trying to think of what, maybe just a darker gray on the back. We'll make it look modern enough. Yeah, I think that'll work. Oops. All right. Yeah, I think that'll work for the look of things. Yeah, I don't think either of them is looking modern enough, but yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I can always make some adjustments later. Kind of a waste of time to get those buttons to look just right, because I'm coloring them in. Kind of the edge here and here. And then lighter versions here and, whoops, here. Nah, try that again. Kind of. All right, I'll probably go back with some lighter colors, and let's just do the keypad like that. Yeah, I think I want to do lighter with that as well. And then put and this I'll actually drop in because those LCD screens sat a little deeper inside the phone, so yeah, a little bit more shadow that way. So we'll try that. Oops, keep bumping everything. And the depth on the buttons too, that was another funny thing. We're so used to touching touch screens now that you forget how much they played with the mechanical buttons and making that work in an interesting or useful way. So many eras of technology have already come and gone. It's crazy. Here. All right. Yeah. Just try that. Yeah, actually the problem with this, I may need to, or I should probably just fill this in. The color, not black, because every time I do that I always get some confusion. Yeah, what's going on? Oh, I'm doing it in the shadows, that's why. Yeah, I don't want too much confusion with the actual little eyes themselves. So something like that. And then put a little shadow on the bottom. Yeah, I always have these smartphones standing up like this. And I don't think that's very realistic. They're never like that, but it makes it a little, it makes it a little bit more humorous, the way they're kind of at attention or just kind of, standing around and pondering stuff. I think that looks a little funnier. And I cannot stop tapping the microphone, so I hope that's not hugely disruptive. So yeah, a little bit you're hearing that, but sorry about that. Yeah, so that's supposed to be this is supposed to be the candy bar style phone. I don't know. Yeah, I guess it's working. All right. Sorry to stretch for a minute here. Oh. Yeah, I noticed this new webcam has a face follow feature, so I don't know how annoying that would be, in this window to have. So, when I did this or whatever, the camera would actually be following my face. I don't know how disruptive or strange that would be to watch a camera kind of move around in that little window, because it's not going to, the main window won't be too, this main window won't be too interrupted by that, but having this odd little window kind of bouncing around may be a strange thing to do. So I haven't tried that yet, but maybe I'll annoy people with that until they beg me to stop. The face follow feature, so I don't know how in fact it even does that and how well that works, but someday we'll test that out and you'll have this crazy little jittery window every time I make a move. It'll be readjusting. Yeah, it just when I just turned it on, just the little test, it seemed maybe too a little too jumpy to be very practical. But who knows? Because so many times I'm doing this, or I'm kind of weirdly off frame. So that might help, because then I can be less self-conscious with that sort of thing while I'm working. But at the same time, it might be just too disruptive to have going all the time. So we'll put some lights here. And actually, let's go back and add some to these guys, even though we've got the shade going on. Ah, that works. Maybe not that, a little in the corner, and same there. Yeah, I did that. Oh, I didn't think I did anything on the inside. Yeah, maybe I should try that. A little bit on the inside to kind of, yeah, there we go. Kind of pull things up a little bit. Oh, actually, I should do it here to kind of oppose the shadow. So this could be like this. And I've got a little weird aliasing there, but I think only I can see that. Let's see. Yeah, I guess my fill might be done. I think it'll be okay when it's reduced in size. Okay, so we got these crazy guys. And oh boy, I forgot a banana. So I'm going to try to do that. So try to do a nice banana color, but then I want to try to do a really annoying, ugly, something, yeah, along these lines for the, you know, that weird cream color. I don't think anybody bought an analog phone in that color. Maybe a little bit brighter version of that. As long as it's not too banana. Yeah, there we go. Something like that. And we'll give this a nice blue or something. One of those, yeah, navy colors that they like to do. And then let's try some metal. Yeah, something like that. Try to do it a little warmer. All right. So the edges of the metal. Yeah, I was thinking earlier, I wish I could hook myself to an IV or something and have my blood monitored while I'm doing the stream, and you would see as the caffeine started to leave my system, the quieter and quieter and less chatty I became on the stream, because I know that definitely happens, because I kind of, you know, I'm at a peak of caffeination right as I'm starting this, and then it just kind of fades. So we're already an hour in, and so, you know, already by this time I'm starting to just stop talking and not do much of anything as far as interacting or even coming up with any interesting thoughts or ideas. I mean, occasionally something will pop into my head, but for the most part, I'm pretty drained by this time. So you've got like an hour of kind of, you know, interactive chatting, and then about 30 minutes of me just pausing and grinding through the rest of the cartoon, and the thought process especially. That's always funny when I'm having to write things, and I just, it's on camera and I'm streaming, but I'm not talking at all. I'm just sitting there not saying anything, and not much to really watch either while I'm doing this, especially when I'm writing. Yeah, there's nothing visual to see except me pondering the possibilities of these funny little objects. But that's yeah, that's the thing I gotta get better at, is making sure that I'm doing something interesting. And that's the whole point of doing this, is trying to share the creative process of doing this with you, in case this is something you want to try to do, or something you already do and just want to see somebody else's approach to it. It's funny that I'll get to the point where I'll forget that's why I'm doing this. I just stop talking, because yeah, that's a huge part of this, you know, of this communication, is trying to keep you filled in on you know, my mental process, or, you know, what I'm thinking while I'm doing this. And when I stop talking, you get nothing, and you'll like it. So yeah, that's difficult. So it's funny, and I am worried too, if like the chat gets busy or something, if I'm actually going to be able to juggle things very well, and if it's actually going to work at all, to be distracted. So that becomes difficult, because I know you know, people talk to their chats and stuff, and, you know, in certain situations can answer what's going on. But in this situation, I'm pretty occupied, so there's not much, you know, not much I could do to interact and still get this done. So yeah, we'll find out someday if I'm going to have to kind of give up the idea of doing that, and just kind of give up the chat itself, and just make it, you know, comment based, you know, just kind of follow follow through with comments or things that people said. Just kind of respond in a more delayed fashion. But we'll cross that bridge, as they say. But oof, yeah. So far, I think most viewers are in the archives, because I think that's something that I've always been worried about. It's just not going to be a practical timing wise. It's just the time difference is not going to allow this to work very well. I think I always see people trying to stream at like 6 p.m. and things, and that's just going to be kind of hard on this end to be here that early and kind of be able to interact regularly at that time. So we'll see how that. Oh, that was fine. See how that turns out. I guess that's banana-y enough. Sure. All right. Oh, and the microphone can actually follow me a little bit. Okay. Well, all right. So those are the two pieces of magic. Oh, actually, I should put a cast shadow across. Come on. Across this as well. So kind of go up over this edge. That'll be more interesting. Yeah. And then fill that in. Yeah, I think that's good. All right. And maybe a little more edge on the banana. And here too. Wow, I'm missing so many shadowy opportunities. Get these things to look like they're existing in the same world somehow. All right. Wow, I got the microphone right in my face. I hope that's not too annoying. I'm not going too red, so I'll make adjustments if I'm really distorting, but not too peaky. So I hope that's working for people. All right. So I'll try to keep this to not much more than an hour if I can. I mean, it's the creative process, so of course I get distracted and slowed down and stuff, but try to get this written within a reasonable amount of time. Okay, so well, I guess before we write, let's put some eyes on things. All right, the banana. Okay, and yeah, these guys, that's not even a great composition. Oops. I don't know. And I think he needs to be not erased, he needs to be frowning. He's got a little microphone on the side of his head, or right by his eyes. All right, somebody like that. Okay. All right, so this idea was, about his. Oh, all right. Having his position monitored and his email read. Actually, I don't know. Maybe I should go back to 720p. I'm looking at myself in this camera. It's like, I don't know if you need to see that much detail. Oh, you can focus on the gray, my ever-changing grayness, and yeah, that'll be a fun time-lapse thing as I'm doing this every week. You can just kind of watch me turn gray and old week by week. All right, so this idea was about a paranoid device, and how being monitored and tracked was very upsetting. So Let's see. So, just because he couldn't see it. Okay, so I got to talk this through. Sorry, I'm just thinking and not saying things out loud. So just because he couldn't see it didn't mean it wasn't happening, is kind of the thinking. Just because yeah, even though he was his position and his content, his email was monitored. Just because he couldn't see them reading his email didn't, yeah, this is going to be a little bit confusing, didn't mean it wasn't happening. Just because he didn't actually get this up a little bit. Oh, sorry. Tripod. This way. Okay. Just because he couldn't see them reading his email. Might have to go back to this. I don't think that's going the right way here. Okay. Okay. Oh, banana phone. All right. There wasn't much use. There wasn't much point in using any of them to talk to. None of these were very useful for talking. Only one of these things. So useful communication. It was only practical to talk with one of these things. Only one of these things was practical to talk with. Only one of them. I guess only one of them was a practical choice for communication. All right. Only one of them was a practical choice for communication. And it even fits. Okay. Only one of them was a practical choice for communication. And you can guess which one that is. So yeah, I'm trying to do the thing I was talking about before, where you look at the picture, you read the text, you go back to the picture. So that's the time, that's the pacing of it. I'm trying to reinforce that in the cartoon because I think I've let that go a little too much. The losing that movement in the humor. So I'm gonna try to keep reinforcing that to kind of get that back and forth, because that's the tendency you want. And if you go back, so if the joke either finishes in the text or in the cartoon, or if it's just visual, then there's no reason to go back, but kind of naturally you do. So it's a little frustrating. It's like, why am I back here? What am I looking for? When there isn't anything to look back at the text for. So I want to be more aware of that now, is getting that nice dynamic going. All right. I don't think bananas are particularly shiny, but everything's been shiny lately in these cartoons. So only one of them was a practical choice for communication. I think that works. I'm happy enough with that. That made me laugh. And as you know, that's my only criteria Just making myself laugh. Okay. And back to these guys. Oh, yeah, I'm not getting across the paranoid aspect of it. And maybe, I don't know, maybe moving these eyes like a little bit, you know, more shadowy would be funnier. I guess, I don't know. So he wasn't paranoid, he was just constantly tracked and monitored. Yeah, so something kind of contradicting that is more fun. So it wasn't being constantly tracked and monitored that made him paranoid. It was being paranoid that made him constantly tracked and monitored. No. Something like that. Something along those lines. So just because... Oh, come on. So, yeah, maybe something about the, chicken and the egg kind of thing. He didn't know which came first. Yeah, I think something like that would be more fun. He didn't know what came first, being constantly tracked and monitored, or paranoid. Yeah. So I gotta find a good wording for that, though. So he didn't know what happened first, or he didn't know which came first, his paranoia or constantly being tracked and monitored. Sorry, I think I peeked there. He didn't know what came first. It was hard to tell. If it made him, so it's hard to tell if his paranoia made him tracked and monitored, or if being tracked and monitored made him paranoid. He didn't understand. He didn't know the relationship. He was unaware of. He still didn't quite understand the relationship between being paranoid and being tracked and monitored. Oh, so yeah, he couldn't remember if he was this paranoid before he realized he was constantly tracked. Yeah. Huh. Yeah, so his privacy, so let's try this from another direction here, because I don't think the paranoid thing is working so well. So his privacy, so giving up his privacy made him feel more unsettled than safe. His lack of, let's see, so sharing information, the way he shared information was making him uncomfortably paranoid. He was uncomfortably paranoid by the amount of information he was constantly sharing. I don't even remember what I just said. He was uncomfortably paranoid by the amount of information he realized he was sharing. There might be a better way to put this, but I just got to get this out. I can't even remember. As I'm saying it, I can't even keep it in my head. Okay, so he was uncomfortably paranoid by the amount of information he realized he was uncomfortably paranoid by the amount of information he was sharing. Uncomfortably paranoid is not, I thought that was kind of funny, but I think that's a little bit repetitive, a little bit redundant. sharing the amount of information that he did. The amount of information he shared made him paranoid. Okay, we can do this. Oh, yeah, so maybe just the idea of sharing might be more fun. So he didn't know when. Yeah. So something like he didn't know when sharing had become constant monitoring and data collection. He didn't know when sharing, so I think I have to do this. He didn't know when sharing had become constant monitoring and data collection. He wasn't sure. So at what point? Yeah, he didn't know when sharing had become another word for he didn't know when sharing started meaning yeah, so I don't. Yeah, so the thing I'm trying to avoid is asking questions. I want these to be, statements and kind of more active and positive, just kind of funny little statements about what's happening in the picture and the interaction between. So I always want to refrain from asking questions. And I'm kind of low in the frame here. I guess I'll fix the camera later. Yeah, so no questions, but things always kind of, as I'm trying to write them, I write a lot of questions, but I need to jeopardy that thing, make my question in the form of an answer or just a statement. So he didn't know when sharing had become constant monitoring and data collection. Yeah. What used to be called sharing had become, what was once sharing had now become, yeah, maybe what was once sharing had now become constant monitoring and data collection. Yeah, so sharing something is now much more sinister. I'm still not in love with that. It's not particularly funny and it's not particularly well worded, but I'm putting a different angle on this shadow. What was once sharing had now become constant monitoring and data collection. Oh, 3 L's in collection. That's awesome. All right. What was once sharing had now become constant monitoring and data collection. Oh, maybe, yeah, maybe add some more. The the joy of sharing had now become the nightmare of the joy of sharing had now become the nightmare of constant monitoring and data collection. The joy of online, that sounds a little dated. The joy of sharing had now become the nightmare of constant monitoring and data collection. Yeah, I think that's closer, and I'm. It's not so generic or not so middle of the road. It's kind of it's got a stronger opinion. That joke has a little bit stronger opinion. The joy of sharing had now become the nightmare of constant monitoring and data collection. Yeah, something like that. Give that another second here. The joy of sharing had now become the nightmare of constant monitoring and data collection. The joy of sharing had now become, yeah, I think that works. Yeah, and that was something, very different from the early cell phone days, although early cell phones were crazy expensive and, text message fees and things. That's just amazing to think about that now. But, yeah, so hopefully that's enough of a contrast, and hopefully there's visually enough there going on. So the joy of sharing had now become the nightmare of constant monitoring and data collection. Yeah, that works. That's a good enough thing to be saying. Okay. And ignore. Okay. All right, so we have one of them was a practical choice for communication. Only one of them. Only one of them was a practical choice for communication. Featuring a banana. And the joy of sharing had now become the nightmare of constant monitoring and data collection. Okay. Yeah, I think that's gonna do it. And I'm gonna play around with the camera angle a little bit. It's on a tripod now, so it doesn't, I'm hitting the table and it doesn't bounce all over the place like it used to. Sorry if that sounded terrible on the microphone. But yeah, so the camera on a tripod I think is a better thing. HD camera is a better thing, of course, and we'll see how this actually looks. This cartoon doesn't need HD, but I'm just trying to up the quality of everything so it's a nicer thing to look at, depending on how you're watching it. But thank you for joining me, and that's all for this week. And please, if you enjoy this cartoon and enjoy this kind of interaction and this talk through the creation, please consider supporting me on Patreon. So patreon.com/abusecartoons, and you can get a book, a signed book, or a piece of original art or something for your support. And as always, I'll give you kind of special access to things and updates that only are for patrons. And so please, please consider that as a fun interaction with this cartoon. And otherwise, I will see you again next week. If you want to follow the cartoon, of course, on Twitter @abusecartoons, abusecartoons.com for the weekly cartoons posting, gocomics.com, of course, if you'd like to have it in your inbox and subscribed. And I'd also, you can find the Facebook page, Abuse Cartoons, and any of those places will kind of lead you back to this. So Twitch and YouTube. So this will be archived on YouTube once I get this processed out of Twitch, and we will see what this new HD format looks like. So thank you for joining me, and I hope this experiment has gone well. I will see you next week. Goodbye.